There are mornings when your soul feels like it's buried beneath 1,000 invisible stones. The alarm clock sounds, light floods your room, the world begins again, but your body stays motionless, as if every muscle is carrying grief from another realm. You're not lazy. You're not indifferent. You are a soul who's been stretched to its limit, caught in a silent storm that others around you can't hear, can't see, and wouldn't understand if they tried. What you're facing is not normal weariness. It is a spiritual emptiness that drains you from the inside out. If your heart led you to this video, it's not by mistake. There is a reason heaven nudged you here. You've been quietly enduring an invisible war, a sacred battle fought in silence, with no soldiers beside you, no applause, and no break. You've prayed when no answer came. You've carried weights no one else noticed. Your bed has become more than a place to rest. It has become the altar where your faith collapses and rises again. Your room, a hidden cave where angels keep watch, and where God, though unspoken, has never left your side. And this moment you are in, as heavy as it feels, is not your undoing. It is divine preparation. It is the quiet before a breakthrough that doesn't to make sense to the world, a shift that will rewrite everything you thought was lost. But before we go deeper into this revelation, I want you to do something bold. If your spirit already feels this truth stirring, if these words mirror something you've felt but never said out loud, hit the like button right now. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because this space is built for people like you, the quietly chosen, the ones heaven is preparing in secret. And most importantly, leave a comment below with the number 99. Spiritually, 99 is not just a number. It is a divine code of closure and transition. It marks the ending of battles fought in silence and signals the beginning of restoration beyond reason. It declares that what has been stolen must now be returned, that what was delayed will arrive in double. Are you ready for that shift? Because what's coming next will change how you see your pain, your stillness, your waiting. The world sees you lying still and assumes you're doing nothing. But they have no idea the fight it takes to simply remain breathing when your spirit feels like it's being crushed by unseen forces. They don't hear the thoughts racing through your mind like thunder. They don't feel the invisible pressure sitting on your chest before your feet even touch the floor. They don't see that your silence is not surrender. It's survival. The ones chosen by heaven aren't simply born with clarity and purpose. They are sculpted through relentless pressure. You've been stretched beyond what felt possible, emptied and tested over and over. But not because you're fragile. It is because you were entrusted with something far too sacred to be handed to the average soul. Yet here is the revelation that will shift your entire inner landscape. You were never created to carry this alone. Even Jesus, the Son of God, had a moment where another helped him bear the weight of the cross. So why are you still trying to prove your worth through silent suffering? Why do you equate silence with strength? That overwhelming fatigue you feel isn't evidence of defeat. It's a divine invitation, an opening to pause, to lay down the armor, to stop pretending you're whole when you're bleeding beneath the surface. It is an invitation to collapse into the arms of the one who knows you weary and welcomes you without shame. Because there's a type of rest that the world can't replicate, a sacred peace that doesn't come from sleep alone, but from surrender, from finally releasing the burdens that were never meant to be yours entirely. And when that surrender happens, when you release the performance and let go of the illusion of being fine, something deep within your soul begins to shift. But don't mistake this transformation for a loud, glorious moment. Often it arrives quietly, in the form of a breath, a pause, the silence between your breakdown and your breakthrough. And in the next breath of this message, I'll take you deeper. Because your greatest enemy may not be the world outside. It might be the voice inside your own thoughts. And when you begin to name that voice, when you separate its lies from your identity, the battle shifts forever. So keep listening. you're closer to freedom than your feelings have told you. For many, a bed is a place of rest, a soft retreat, a sanctuary where the mind can finally loosen its grip. But for you, the chosen, the bed has become something entirely different. It's no longer a resting place. It's a hidden battlefield. Because when the world outside falls silent, that's when the inner voices grow louder. The demons don't announce themselves with screams. They arrive in whispers that mimic your own thoughts. You're falling behind. You're too much. You're not enough. You're forgotten by God. And lying there in the shadows, staring at the ceiling or curling under the blankets, those whispers sound less like deception and more like truth. It's in this stillness that fear becomes tangible, that sorrow wraps around you like a second skin, that the silence is so deafening, it drowns out every verse you've clung to in the past. And you begin to wonder if this heaviness is forever, if this darkness has no end. The place meant for healing starts to feel like a prison. Each time you try to rise, invisible chains seem to tighten. But what others can't see is this. You're not simply lying there. You're refighting battles that don't show up on scans or leave marks on your skin. You are warring against despair, resisting the voices of sabotage that aim to steal your future. This is not sleep. This is resistance. And while the enemy tries to weaponize your stillness, what he didn't expect was God meeting you there too. Yes, the same God who calmed storms and resurrected the dead is right there on the edge of that bed, not condemning you, not demanding a performance, just being present, just staying, silent when necessary, but never absent. He is the one who caught your tears when you couldn't explain why they kept falling, the one who heard you whisper, "I can't do this anymore," with trembling breath, and answered not with noise, but with presence. He saw you curl into yourself and plead, "God, please just hold me," without a single verse to offer, without polished words. And he responded. He sent mercy wrapped in invisible comfort. He dispatched angels who fought for your soul while you lay unaware. He offered peace that didn't erase the pain, but gave you enough strength to face one more dawn. He covered you in grace when shame tried to name you unworthy. Because on your darkest nights, especially those nights, he refuses to leave your side. This isn't just your bed. It's become sacred ground, a battleground, and a testimony. Proof that even when you're surrounded by shadows, your purpose hasn't stopped calling your name. Here is the truth no one shares. The place where the enemy whispers the loudest is often the exact place where your divine purpose is being forged in secret. So don't underestimate the war beneath the covers, and never mistake your stillness for surrender. You are being refined, and the evidence is in the very breath you still carry. Because what the world mislabels as isolation is often something far deeper, divine initiation. And in this next breath, we're going to peel back the layers of your soul to reveal why you've always felt things others could never articulate. Why your reactions were never exaggerated, but precise. Why your tears weren't weakness, but a response to frequencies most hearts were too numb to perceive. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It is your fingerprint. It is your key. You've entered spaces and instantly known something was off. No one looked at you strangely. No words were spoken. But the air felt denser. The atmosphere changed. And though everyone else carried on, untouched, something inside you tightened. You've woken up with sorrow that didn't originate in your own heart, an anxiety that seemed to have no root, emotional waves crashing without warning. And you whispered to yourself, "What's wrong with me?" But let me answer that with truth. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not overreacting. You are not fragile. You are spiritually engineered, crafted by God with sensors in your soul, built to feel what the physical eye cannot catch. But here is the cost. This kind of wiring doesn't allow you to move through life unnoticed. You were never meant to blend in. You were designed to enter spaces and change them, without speaking a word. You discern pain before it's ever confessed. You sense betrayal behind smiling eyes. You feel danger before it announces itself. You absorb the cries of the spirit world while others laugh in distraction. That's why shallow chatter leaves you depleted. Why you're no longer satisfied with noise. Why you long for quiet, for realness, for truth. Why you walk away from people you once tolerated, not out of pride, but preservation. Because you were not created to function on surface level. You were crafted to move through realms, to sense what's buried. But with this discernment comes a particular grief, a spiritual ache that few understand. You grieve over sins others celebrate. You pray for people who ridicule you. You break over what others belittle. And sometimes you withdraw not because you're broken, but because your soul is overwhelmed by the weight of everything it's had to carry silently. And this is why sleep doesn't always bring rest. Because your body may lie still, but your spirit remains alert. Sleep cannot clear spiritual downloads. Only presence can. Only stillness with the divine can unravel the knots inside you. God is the only one fluent in the language of your soul. You're not unstable. You're not emotional. You're attuned. You're tuned to the frequency of heaven. You detect spiritual warfare while others scroll endlessly. You feel heaven grieving over a generation still drunk on distraction. And the enemy, he knows the truth, that if he can make you ashamed of your sensitivity, he can mute your gift. If he convinces you that you're too much, you'll silence the very voice heaven placed inside you. But here's the truth that breaks that lie. Your sensitivity is sacred. It's how God speaks, how angels guide, how you're led into places others can't tread. Ordinary souls don't feel the shift in a stranger's posture. They don't wake up weeping over nations they've never seen. They don't fall to their knees for names they've never spoken aloud. But you do. You are spiritually awake, spiritually charged, and yes, spiritually dangerous to darkness. And that's why you felt so lonely, so drained, so misunderstood. But that's not your end. That's your edge. The edge of a power so uncommon, so undeniable, that once you embrace it, you'll never be the same. So the next time someone tells you, you're too sensitive, smile with quiet authority. Because heaven calls that same sensitivity a divine compass, a holy antenna, a weapon. And now, let's talk about the final war, the one no one ever dares to mention, the war you've rehearsed alone. The moment you felt, but never voiced aloud. That thought, subtle but piercing, that whispers, what if I simply vanished? Not to provoke worry, not to be dramatic, but because everything feels too loud, too heavy, too much. You've imagined silence, not for peace, but for disappearance. A way to escape without a sound. You've had moments where breathing felt like effort, where your own name echoed like a stranger's in your mouth, where the world spun on, fast, blind, demanding, and all you wanted was to step out for just a moment, just long enough to breathe without pressure. But let this truth reach you. That urge doesn't mean you're ungrateful, or weak, or broken. It means you're human. A human carrying divine burdens on a soul, stitched together by God. You've been the strong one, the stable one, the encourager, the anchor, while your inner world was unraveling quietly, waiting for someone, anyone, to notice. And the truth is, you're tired not because you're failing, but because you've walked this sacred road alone for too long. Spiritual isolation is real, and it hits hardest for those marked with destiny, because your battles are not common. Your weight is not shared. You carry blueprints for legacies others haven't even dreamed of. You fight for bloodlines, for redemption, for truths others ridicule because they have no idea how much it costs to carry a mantle like yours. And in that exhaustion, the enemy waits. He doesn't need to destroy you. He only needs to convince you to abandon your post, to walk away from the very thing you were born to do. But even on the nights when everything inside you screamed to let go, even when the only mercy you could imagine was quitting, something didn't die. A flicker remained. A breath. A whisper. A silent defiance in your spirit. And that flicker is your proof. It didn't demand attention. It didn't roar. That flicker simply remained. A quiet glow, sacred and unwavering. That ember inside you, it isn't just a spark of hope. It's the signature of God Himself, planted long before your first breath. A divine reminder embedded in your soul that whispers, not yet. Don't give up. Not now. Not when you've come this far. Not when there's still more to uncover, more to walk into, more to become. You may not feel brave right now. You may not feel pure or focused or even present. But the very fact that you're still here, still breathing, still listening to this message is all the proof you need that your story hasn't reached its final page. You don't have to stand up with confidence. You don't need flawless clarity. You don't need unshakable strength. What you need is willingness, the tiniest yes, a trembling voice, a broken prayer, a body worn by weeping, and a soul willing to rise anyway. Even with swollen eyes, even with weary limbs, even if you have no plan, no energy, and no answers, rise anyway. Because the enemy never feared your collapse. He feared your return. He trembles at the thought of you standing again, not with the same old patterns, but with renewed fire in your spirit and a testimony on your lips. He fears the version of you that comes back wiser, sharper, bolder, with heaven behind you and hell under your feet. You thought about quitting. You almost let go. But what if I told you that exact moment was the hinge point, the final test before everything turns? Don't move. Stay with me. Because in these next seconds, you're going to understand why all this pain had a purpose. Why your survival wasn't some random escape, but a prophetic unfolding. You've carried burdens that would have crushed others. You've endured storms that didn't even belong to you. And now, it's time. Time to step into the life that's been waiting for you all along. So listen carefully. If all you managed today was to take one breath, if your only act of courage was whispering, God, I'm still here, then you've already achieved something holy. Heaven took note. Hell shuddered. The earth adjusted. Because when someone chosen rises, even without applause, even when no one's watching, the spirit realm responds, shifts, aligns. You weren't preserved through all this just to vanish again. You weren't pulled out of the fire to return to your cave. That bed wasn't your coffin. It was your battlefield. That silence wasn't shame. It was sacred ground where transformation happened in the dark. And that fatigue you feel? It's not laziness. It's the residue of a soul that has been wrestling with the unseen. And like Jacob, your name is about to change. No longer labeled by your lowest season. No longer bound by how they used to describe you. You're not lazy, not lost, not forgotten. You are becoming. Becoming what the darkness tried to silence. Becoming the answer you once cried out for. Becoming the light that cuts through thick despair like a sword. Every tear you've ever shed watered the ground you'll soon stand on. Every silent scream was a line in your victory song. Every collapse, a design for your rise. And now, when you get up, even if you stumble at first, you activate something eternal. You become a living prophecy, a walking resurrection. For God never left your side in those lonely nights. He was in the silence. He was in the ache. He sat beside your bed and waited for this moment. And now he rises with you. So rise, chosen one, not because you have it all together, but because heaven has called your name. Rise not in strength, but in surrender. Not in perfection, but in purpose. Even if you rise in pieces, those pieces carry power. Comment below, I choose to rise. Let heaven record it. Let hell remember it. And let every accusing voice inside your mind fall silent. Because you're not finished. You're not too late. You're not lost. You're only just beginning. And the next time your feet meet the earth, the ground itself will recognize a warrior has stood. Get ready, because now everything changes.